Let's take a look at how I designed this creature. So first thing I actually did was to design the ambience. So in the video we see a snowy forest. It feels magical, it feels windy. Here's what the ambience sounds like on its own. So let's take a look at the wind. For the wind, I used this synth patch. It takes 3 instances of noise and passes them through 3 different EQs to get some tonality and movement, and make it feel like wind. I played around with the macros until I felt the wind fit the scene. And so the first wind layer sounds like this. And to really emphasize the feeling of the wind going around your head, I used the same synth patch with different settings for the macros, which made it sound a lot more tonal. But I really wanted to only keep the whistling element of the wind because I already had the noise from the first layer. So I started off with this sound. Put it through some flattening. And then through a lot of noise reduction. This was starting to get a bit unnatural, so I put it through some more flattening. A little bit of pitch shifting. And this is the most important part. I put it through Traveler on the Nucleus preset. Here's how the 2 wind layers sound together. For the birds, I used recordings from outside my house. This is what the first recording sounds like after removing the noise. There's very little processing going on here. There's some gain automation, panning, and this convolver. So the reason I did the gain automation through Snap Heap and not through the track controls is because I wanted it to go before the convolver. It sounds a bit more natural that way. I wanted it to feel like the birds are flying away from the creature after it roars. The other bird layers have the same processing with different recordings. And overall, the birds sound like this. Next up, we have this recording of me stepping over some branches while I was recording birds. And I just put it through some OTT. I wanted it to feel a lot more subtle, so I took some of the transients off, compressed it more, took it an octave down, and then I panned it and used the same convolver that I used for the birds. Then we have the sounds for the trees and rocks. So for most of these layers, I just took my recordings, put them inside this phase plant granular patch. And I played around switching different recordings, changing the grain amount. I took a lot of the transients off so it would feel more smooth. I also had some flattening going on. So I just played around with this patch, swapped the recordings, and used Global Sampler whenever I played something that sounded nice. And so I ended up with these recordings for the trees. some of which I compressed further. And these two tracks, which are supposed to be the frozen trees, are sent into a delay. This is what they sound like without any delay. This is with the delay. For the rock layers, I used this earthquake patch by Bas Bertrand. Big shout out to him. I used this patch a lot in my works. I linked to his tutorial in the description. So it's the same thing. I played around with that patch, took my favorite bits, and this is what I ended up with for the rocks. For this layer, I added some saturation and flattening. Then I put a high pass to take out some unnecessary lows. The final thing I did for the ambience is add some musical elements, which sound like this. Here we have three things going on. I used two presets that come with Faceplant. It's this one. I just added the reverser. There's also this one. And the most important layer, for the magical shimmer of the forest, I took my Fork Scrapes recording. Put it through filter table. Then through some denoising. Then I put it through mGranular MB on the pad making preset. And then I added a reverser and a reverb. When I got the sound that I wanted, I also added some flattening. And then all of the musical elements go through additional flattening, a little bit of OTT, and a high pass. Let's listen again to the entirety of the ambience. After finishing the ambience, I added a low pass automation for when the camera goes underground. With the ambience finished, I went on to design the creature sounds. I wanted to go for a creature sound that was somewhere between a very cute creature and a powerful one. I recorded a lot of things with very natural tonal elements. So in my processing, I really wanted to emphasize the tonal elements that were already there. So I went ahead and experimented with different processing for each recording, building this palette to draw from for the final design. These are the fork scrapes that I recorded. So in a lot of these tracks, I used a similar snap heap setup to this one. This is from a video by Presley from the Sound Design Discord. I'll put the video in the description. Basically, there are a bunch of these effects automated by the audio follower and a random LFO. So let's listen to it as I enable the effects. This filter is not actually being automated. I think it used to be like this. But I ended up moving it all the way up. After the snap heap, I added some OTT and additional flattening. Next up, I took this recording of rubbing fingers over a wet plate and I time stretched it. And then it goes through a snap heap patch. It's a little different from the first one, but it's the same idea really. I put it on a different track and pitched it up, took the mix to 10%. There's this gate, which I'm not sure does anything, and this funny little LFO controlling the formant. For the fork scrapes, I also time stretched it on a different track and then put it through denoising and flattening. So it sounds like this. This is a recording of me doing some very odd noises. So I took it through Snap Heap, I pitched it down an octave, and it ended up sounding very good. I saw the creature had these tendrils, so I wanted to give them this alien dispersory sound. This is the recording that I started with. This is just to rid it of some unnecessary low end and make it smoother. Then it goes through M granular MB. So additionally, for this alien magical sound, I also have this recording of bottle caps. I put it through OTT, then through Snap Heap, denoising, and our good old friend M granular MB. And to finish it off, it goes through the same Snap Heap patch as the others. Some great chittering sounds. There's this recording of me also doing some higher creature voices. And I put it through the Snap Heap setup. And this final recording I used is of my lovely dog. His name is Willy. He is a mix of a pug and a Jack Russell. And here's the recording. There's very little processing over this. I just pitched it down and took some of the high end off. So that's it for the palette building. Let's see how I used these sounds in the actual design. Here's the sound I used for the blinks. And I added some compression and filtering. I wanted it to be more slimy and less clicky. For the vocals before and after the roar, I used these. And later I added this EQ because I mostly just needed the mids. For the later part, I also added these little sneezes that my dog did. Then in the group, they both go through some OTT. And additional cleanup of the low end with some saturation, going into this reverb and a convolver. And now for the part we've all been waiting for, the roar. This is from my own voice. It goes through this EQ, then into this frequency shifter, then it goes into a brutal high pass. Here's the recording of the fork scrapes. It's going through a high pass. Here's a different layer of the fork scrapes. It's going through denoising, a high pass, and some distortion and pitch shifting. It sounds pretty bad right now, but it fits within the mix. Then I put in the low recording of my own voice. There's a bit of a fade with volume automation. And this layer I initially had in the design, but I ended up not using it. I really liked how it sounded, but it didn't fit well enough for this creature. These three layers that sound together like this, I took together into this group, which has a low pass automation. This is supposed to simulate the mouth of the creature opening and closing. Here's the recording of the bottle caps that I ended up using. And what ties everything together very nicely is this recording of my dog's breaths. I think it makes a huge difference. Let's listen to the roar without the breaths and then with it. This part is also pretty crucial. For the whole group, there's this snap heap, just cleaning some unnecessary low end, adding a little bit of saturation, putting it in a convolver. But this frequency shifter really makes a difference. You can see this frequency shifter has a pretty narrow range of automation because everything else is already being modulated and shifted. But this really adds a type of movement that is uniform to all the layers together. So once I had the roar finished, I wanted to play a little with the echoes. There's a high pass here going into a delay, going into a Deer VR Pro 2. Together with the roar, it sounds like this. And the full creature sounds like this. During the roar, I pulled the volume of the ambience down a little bit. So this is what the ambience and the creature sound like together. And in the mix bus, I have this high pass for the sides, some glue compression, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of flattening, and a limiter. Big thanks to Mattia and to A Sound Effect for hosting the competition. If you're a fan of creature sound design, you probably already know that Mattia has some of the best libraries for that. So please go check him out. If you have any questions about my process, please let me know. If I had to summarize my approach to creature sound design, it would be to have some mix of very processed, very unique sounds, and also very grounded, real sounds. I think the best example of that in this design is my dog's recordings. Sometimes a single grounded element can glue all your other layers very well. And that's something I find very useful in creatures. I also share a link in the description to my recordings that I used for this challenge. You can use them for your own designs however you want. So cheers and goodbye.